Hey everybody, it's Kathy Alessandra, your Yes I Can coach. And this week's episode of Yes I Can Living is featuring Tish Times. Now, I'm going to read her bio in a second, but Tish and I go way back. I'm not even sure how far back we go. I mean, it was certainly the other magazine, and I'm guessing it's got to be at least 10 years.
Yeah.
So Tish Times is the founder of the Tish Times Sales Agency. For over 10 years, Tish has been empowering businesses and entrepreneurs to create revenue-generating business connections, shorten the sales cycle, and close sales with ease. Tish and her team help skyrocket revenue for companies with a done-for-you sales solution. She's an expert at helping companies to attract more leads, maintain a full pipeline, and convert more prospects to clients. Her books include Networking is Not a One-Night Stand, isn't that the truth? The Unstoppable Confidence Networking Playbook, and the Networking and Sales Planner. She is the founder of Profit Makers University, a business school that teaches a systematic, sincere, and effective approach to networking and sales to produce lucrative bottom line results. So Tish, welcome to today's interview. Excited to have you here.
I'm excited too. I was like, yeah, it's been a long time.
Yes, it's got to, I mean, we're probably going on 10, somewhere between 10 and 12 years, I'm thinking.
Yeah, easy.
Something like that. Yeah,
for sure.
So I know who you are and what you do, but why don't you share with our listeners, why did you start your business? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's funny. Someone had asked me this question a while back, and I was remembering how when I had my very first professional interview, I used to be in the staffing world. And I remember sitting at this interview and them saying, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And my little fresh out the, college room, if you will, I said, one day I'm going to own a business. And they were like, oh, really? What kind of business do you want to own? And I was like, I don't know. I just know I know that I'm supposed to run a business. And sure enough, probably about 10 years after that, long story short, I found myself starting my own staffing company. And that was my first toe dip into entrepreneurship, and have obviously morphed into different types of businesses since then. But the one of the primary reasons I run this business now, really helping people to sell more effectively, to shorten those sales cycles. I grew up with very low self-esteem. And I know what it's like to have something powerful to offer, but not really know how to communicate it clearly. And I find that when I meet entrepreneurs, I mean, they're normally just brilliant, amazing. And when they have those sales conversations, they don't sound that way. They don't feel brilliant. They don't sound powerful or confident. And many times they lose money because they don't see themselves as a powerful, brilliant business owner. And one of my primary goals is to help people to present that way, whether it's teaching them how to do it or doing it on their behalf so that they can live the life that they want to live through their business.
Oh, I love that. You're so right. That whole confidence piece, right? I mean, how you show up, how you're selling yourself, what you're saying. And I think so many of us tend to take a step back when you start talking about making, closing the sale or making the sale. And it's unfortunate doing ourselves an injustice, but we're all in the industry of sales.
Yeah, whether we want to believe it or not, it doesn't matter what you call yourself, you're in sales.
Right. If you're in business for yourself,
you're in sales.
Well, this is true. That's a really good point.
You gotta figure out how to sell bedtime sometimes.
Well, and you know what? That is a lot easier than selling the $10,000 program or the $5,000 program or whatever, right? I mean, absolutely love it. And I think when we first met, because I know the books that you've got, the networking books, I think you were also big in the whole networking and really teaching people, which again is another confidence thing. Yeah. Stepping into a room and not knowing anybody and being willing to walk in and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think a lot of people struggle with that. And I say that networking is the entry point to sales. So most people don't get to the sale because they've never built a relationship, which means they've never, had that powerful introduction. They've never made people feel like, I want to know more. And so that for me is huge. And if we don't have the confidence to make the introduction, to clearly and concisely express who we are and what we do, we generally don't get to the point of being able to make that sale.
Right. I love that. So would you be willing to share maybe a tip or two for, building confidence when you talk about selling yourself or that sales process and what somebody could think about or do?
Yeah, so my tips are going to be very different than the average sales professional because I just come from a different background. And for me, faith is such a huge component. as I said earlier, I really struggle with my confidence. I struggle with my confidence into my mid-20s, not even early mid-20s. And, I had to really learn who I am at the core. I had to get really assured, really secure in that I have something amazing to offer that is, and it may even sound a little conceited to say it this way, but I'm going to say it because I think that people need to understand it. I have to believe that people's lives are made better because of what I do. And when I began to believe that, then I was able to have those more clear conversations. And I was able to introduce myself to strangers in a big room. And then I was able to believe that not only should they, but I really believe that I have an obligation to present it. And I really believe that they should take it because it can change the way that they do business. It can change their lives in some cases. So I've taken time to do, I call them my I am statements. Other people would call them affirmations. And they've made a huge difference for me because the more I said them at the beginning, it was like, I'm confident. I don't believe it, but I'm going to keep saying it. But guess what? Believe it or not, Kathy, over time, that confidence began to build. For me, again, everybody else may not feel this way. And again, you're probably not going to hear this on a lot of stages or a lot of sales conferences, but I believed I had to get to the core of, okay, what does God say about who I am? And when I began to understand, wait a minute, he said that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and I'm up here acting like I can't even put three words together. I have to begin to change my mindset around who I am. And so understanding what God says about me, starting to declare things for myself was a huge part of me increasing my confidence and then making that a daily practice. It wasn't something I could do once a week or once a month. It has to be every single day. And it's still something that I practice on a regular basis.
Right. You mentioned faith and that's a big component for me too. And I think it's interesting. And I think a lot of times people don't talk about faith in the business world, right? And particularly corporate, but entrepreneurship as well, and what that looks like. And so, can you share a little bit about your faith journey with us? And, you said really believing what God's plan is for you and listening to that, and then having that confidence built because of that. How did you get to that point?
God, there's probably way more story than there is time. So I'm going to find some chunks that I can pull out of it.
Right.
But kind of putting that parallel with business and faith. I knew, as I said, I didn't know at that point that God was telling me you're destined for this. This is something that I'm calling you to. And I said in that interview and said, one day I'm going to be a business owner. But I did realize that over time. And, for me, it was like the fear of, well, wait a minute, you mean I have to produce income on my own? I have to hire people. I have to figure this all out. It was scary. And in my first business, there were major ups and downs where it was like, yes, I believe. Oh God, no, I don't believe. I don't see it. How we're going to make payroll, all of those things. And had a major, 2008 was hard for pretty much everyone. It was really hard for me in that first business. And it was the year I ended up closing my first staffing company. And it was also the greatest lesson of faith I've ever gotten. And it kind of was like my launch pad, if you will, into really learning how to believe God. And, closing it, losing everything. I was so glad my kids were away at school, only because then I didn't have to worry about where they were going to sleep, because we literally lost everything during that time. But I learned during that time how to trust God and how to get back. Now, it wasn't an overnight thing. It took me quite a while, probably a 6-month journey of me crying and, being mad at God and being in shame and all of those other things. But through that process, it was like really learning, okay, this is what he's called me to. And my fear would not allow me to go back into business for myself for quite some time. It was 2 years before I started my next business. And I went in, took a job. I already knew staffing. I was good at it. So I took a job with another staffing company. And every day I went into the office, I sat at my desk, and it was this big, beautiful office. I was the area manager, sat in this office, and I could hear God say, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? This is not what I called you to do. And I would be like, blah, 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 I don't hear you. But believe it or not, and I knew it was him. 2 years in, my leader called and said, hey, we're making some changes, and basically your services are no longer needed. And I literally looked up and I was like, really? We had to go there. But it was that day that I started the business. The day I lost my position, I started this business, and I've been moving full forward ever ever since. Yes, there's still ups and downs, but as far as the business is concerned, I'm like, I can't do this without him. He literally is my CEO. I have to lean on him to get the blueprint and the business plan and everything. And when I do stray off on my own, because I'm human, I definitely find myself trying to make my own plans and figure things out on my own.
Right.
Very quickly, I realized I can't do it without him. I have to go back, get on my knees, figure out what he's saying, and then I can move forward with it. And that's been my walk. Again, very, very, very long story short, but it's a constant. It's a relationship that I will not live without. I absolutely need God for everything that I do.
I love that. It's interesting too, the story about how, you were in that for 2 years, right? And you were just kind of sitting in it and doing the job in the corporate, even though you knew you were being called someplace else. And I think sometimes, in my experience, God has closed the door, forced my hand, right, to have to do that next thing, and never fun, but
Yeah, not at all.
purpose. There's a reason. There's a purpose. So clearly, you've talked about some of your challenges, that you've had on this. But are there others that, I know, are there other challenges, life and business wise, that you've had to go through, and how have you, moved through those?
Good gracious, there's so many. When we think about life, we were very happy in Texas. We were, my husband and I, my boys at the time, very, very happy in Texas, going right along. My business was doing great there. And we got a call to start a ministry in Phoenix. And it was like, okay, now mind you, this was a call that was ongoing. We knew we were coming to Phoenix. We were kind of waiting. Okay, God, when you open the door, when you show us exactly what to do, then we'll move. And we know that's not how God works. So,
Right.
We really got that strong push to move in like 2014, I think it was 2013 for us to move in 2014. And when you say a challenge, number one, moving an entire business, to a city where you don't know anyone. Yeah, I have a national audience, but it was still, having to build new relationships here and figure out the networking scene in a new community and build a ministry. That alone was hard, not knowing anyone. It's great when you have a group of people coming with you to kind of help you plan a church. It's a whole different thing when it's like you and your spouse and your son. I have my youngest son came with us. It's like, hi, I know you don't know us, but can you come to our church? It was challenging to say the least. And we've been here for 8 years. Next year will be 9 years. And there's still challenges, but it's like, hey, but we've learned so much. God, we've learned so much, and I wouldn't trade the journey for anything. And of course, again, with business, those same things, it's like building what you really believe God has placed in your heart. And you're like, okay, this isn't working. Why did, I thought I heard you. And he's like, yeah, you did. Keep at it. Don't give up, and that's the thing I've learned: tenacity. I've learned to trust in the face of when it looks like everything is falling apart. It's like, continue to trust and know that if you will just hold on, you'll see your breakthrough, you'll see it, and it'll be a blessing to more than just you. And that's the hard part. It's like holding on when it looks like it's not working. And then knowing that other people will benefit if you just hold on. There's so many things, Kathy, I could probably talk all day, but those are the things that come to mind.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. I appreciate the sharing. So let me ask you this. If there was something that you wish you knew when you started your business, like what would you tell your younger self now? What would be the one thing that would be?
Yeah, I would think for me, it'd be get comfortable with the hard things. So I can get on the stage and talk. That's my happy place, right? I can do a sales training. I love it. I love being able to help clients kind of get new ideas and learn how to sell them and reach goals and all of that. But the back end stuff, I wasn't in love with. I didn't love the accounting. I didn't, all of those things. So I would have said to myself, get comfortable with those things. I don't have to know everything about it. You can definitely outsource some of those things or hire your weaknesses. But to just not deal with it at all because you don't like doing it is not a solution. And that was something early on in the business. It was like, we don't have enough money. Let's just go make some more because I could do that easy. Go sell some more stuff. And so I had to learn, the hard way. You can't just, keep selling, but you still have to manage what comes in. You still have to figure out how to do those things that you're not comfortable with. and you have to have an eye on it. Like I wouldn't send off my kid, even though the teachers are experts, but I'm not just gonna like, yeah, you just take care of them. I'll just see them when they're grown. We have to be involved. We have to have a clear picture of what's happening in the entire business. And I think early on I didn't understand that well, and it was a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah, that's a good point. Really, as a CEO, even if we're a one-woman show for those listening, right, it's still having that global view and knowing what's going on. But then you mentioned too, I think it's important to bring in team. I think the first 10 years of my magazine business, I did not have a bookkeeper.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
Yeah, exactly.
Because my area of brilliance is not numbers.
Me too, Kathy.
I can make it, but I don't want to have to. Yeah, I think that's an important one. Awesome, wonderful. So how would you define success?
You know what's funny? I have a clip. You asked me this question 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Pretty close to that, yeah. And I have a clip of me sitting on a stage at your event answering this question. And the answer is still the same. It really is. It's being able to lay my head on my pillow at night, knowing that I've done my best, knowing that I've honored God, I've not hurt anyone in the process, and that, people are being blessed and benefited by the work that I do. There's a larger, I'm sure, overview for many people, but for me personally, it's like, God is pleased, I'm good. That's what my definition of success is.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And that was what Success Summit 10 years ago.
Yes. And I hadn't even thought about that until you asked, but I still have that clip on my. Yeah, I sure do.
Well, I think, sometimes I think that a lot of times, actually, I think that speaks to values, right? Where is our core values? And that's what's I have to say, I don't think there's anybody I've ever interviewed in the hundreds of podcasts I did for today's Innovative Woman and the 50 or so for this. Nobody has ever said money.
No.
The bottom line in the bank account. That's not the women of yes, I can, right? It's, service and giving back and finding it in a different way. Absolutely finding it in a different way. So what now would you say, what role does faith play in your business currently?
It's still top of the line. It really is. And sometimes I've been guilty of letting busyness get me off of my routine. So, you wake up and you have an early morning call. I have clients that are on the East Coast. So sometimes I have to get up early for a 6 or 7 o'clock a.m. call. And, before you know it, the day is halfway over and I hadn't spent time in my meditation or, doing my devotion, reading my word, praying, whatever. And, the funny thing is, if you let that happen once or twice before you know it, it's no longer a routine for you. And when I've let that happen, it's been like, it's kind of like following the breadcrumbs back to figure out what's the problem, what's going on. It's like, aha. So now it's like, wake up first thing, even if it's 15 minutes, I always call it the first 15, even if it's 15 minutes, it's like, I need to spend some time with my Father. I need to spend some time reading this word. I have to hear his directions for the day. I have to sometimes just cry before him, whatever it is, but it has to be the first thing. And for me, when that's not happening, I'm out of alignment. And if I'm out of alignment, my business is out of alignment. And everything else is like, it's like everything else gets off after that. So faith is the preeminent thing. God is first. He says, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And then all these things will be added. It says in Matthew 6 and 33. So it's like, if we don't do that first thing first, then we'll find that the things that we need aren't always added, number one. And many times it's spiritual things, it's mental and emotional stability. And then the money starts to fall apart. And you're like, well, what's really going on? That's when we realize something's wrong. It's like, oh, things are falling apart. No, things were falling apart a long time ago. You just weren't paying attention to it.
Right. That is so true. So true. I have absolutely daily morning practice in that. And you're right. If we get off of that, the slightest bit, it can really make a huge shift in how we see the world and being connected and grounded with our higher power. So, So if somebody wants to connect with you, want to find out more about what you do or that kind of stuff, where would they go to do that?
They would go to tishtimes.com. And on social, I've made it very easy. I'm Tish Times on all platforms. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all of the social platforms. Excuse me, I'm on at Tish Times.
Love it. That does make it easy. So let me ask you a final question that I ask all our guests. What makes you a yes, I can woman?
Really, it is that belief in the fact that, yep, it may seem hard. Yes, it may seem far-fetched or far away, but I believe that because of the God that resides on the inside of me, I can do all things. So it's not about, I'm so educated, I'm so experienced, I have great expertise. It's about the fact that I have the greater one living on the inside of me. So yes, I can do all things.
Oh, I love that. Tish, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you sharing your story and, all that goes with that. I appreciate you sharing your faith and how that is such a grounding piece and such a core piece of your business, right? So many forget about that. And just for being here and being you. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it, Kathy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So be sure to hop on over to tishtimes.com or one of her social media platforms and connect with her directly. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with another episode of Yes, I Can Living, where you will find inspiring content and amazing women who share their story. You can also hop over to yourdailyyes.com to get a daily or weekly email or text message to give you inspiration, motivation, and hope. Until then, I hope you have a great day and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.